Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Demko Nano Shark, an even smaller of the Shark whatever family, which actually, in my opinion, they're some of the best EDC knives that have ever graced the knife world. If you don't own a Demko Shark Lock knife yet, those are one of those styles, that I recommend that everybody pick up. The locking system is incredibly easy to manipulate. It is ridiculously strong. Andrew Demko is the gentleman behind the Triad lock. So essentially what he did is created another Triad lock that is way easier to manipulate and is also ambidextrous, making it friendly for left-handed people. And yes, you do get a second left-handed clip with this knife, as is the case with all of these Demko Shark knives. So lefties, you can enjoy this just as much. This knife is really interesting and it does a lot of things right. And it also has some things that I don't like as much. We're going to talk all about it. But this knife is available. I'll link it down in the description. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's entirely up to you. Thanks so much to Demko Knives for sending this in. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. I'm going to let you guys know I'm going to keep this. I enjoyed this enough and it was fun enough for me. Where you guys know that I get a lot of review samples on this channel. The vast majority of what comes in to me is given away on live streams. I give my free knives back to the people who support my channel. Sometimes I get a little bit greedy, find something that I like, right? And I keep it. And this is going to be one of those. I do like this enough to keep it, so I do want to lead off with that. But I'm gonna explain all of my thoughts here. So first of all, let's get a measurement because this is a little knife. The overall length of the Nano Shark is coming in at not even 6 inches. There's gonna be jokes. Not even 6 inches, guys. It's pathetic. I'm kidding. 5.85 inches of overall length, and then we have about 2.35 inches of blade, making this very, very legal in places where they have like stupid knife length laws, like where it's got to be like under 3 inches or under 2.5 or whatever. Plenty legal. And then 2 1/8 for your cutting edge. How about some size comparisons? The first thing we need to do is put it up against the smaller Demkos. I don't think it makes any sense to put it up against the full-size 80-20, but I will put it up against the medium-sized 80-20.5 and the smaller Demko Shark Cub. This was kind of like my top favorite EDC. Everybody knows I've carried the Para 3 longer than any other knife I've ever owned, but I was, this one was on its way to being up there, and as a knife reviewer, I carry a lot of stuff, right? But then the Shark Cub came around, and I thought any smaller than this, it's not going to be for me. And the Shark Cub, well, long story short, this is like my favorite EDC knife ever. I mean, it really has it all. It's the right size. It's incredibly compact and strong and easy to manipulate, and just love that, right? So when I found out that they had the Nano Shark, I thought, could it be smaller and could I enjoy it more? We'll talk more about that, but this is the size comparison here. Where this knife differs is in terms of height and thickness, because this is a fat little guy. What the heck? That is a fat little knife. I don't know why they decided to do that, but I have to admit there's a little bit of charm to it. I do kind of like it. We'll talk more about that too. Let's do size comparisons up against some knives that people might be a little bit more familiar with. Any custom scales you might find in this section will be found. I'll link them down in the description under Original Goat and others. So up against the 80-10, and we already saw it up against the 80-20.5, but for tradition's sake, there you go. Let's put it up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. This is obviously going to be very small. And then instead, since you guys get the idea with those, let's put it up against some knives that are actually much, much smaller. What do I have up here that we could just use real quick? Okay, here's like the budget. It's not actually called the Mini Pyrite, but it's basically the Mini Pyrite. And then the Civivi Baby Banter. So bigger there, for sure. And definitely more robust. Definitely more durable. How's the action? The reason I don't love carrying little knives like this is because I hate how awkward they are to manipulate, generally. Usually, these little tiny knives, these little short, little stumpy little, I just don't like it. I want to be able to manipulate it. I want to be able to reverse flick it. I want to be able to, thumb flick it. I want it to feel organic, right? That's what I love about this knife so much, is it's small, but it still feels organic. Did they accomplish it? Surely there's no way, right? I gotta admit, this is a stupidly easy knife to manipulate, and it is so organic. So how did they do it? Number one, they made the frame taller. And the thickness of this gives you that feeling of confidence in holding on to the object, right? It's not so thin, and so it's not so thin this way or this way that you feel like you're going to drop it while you're manipulating it. Furthermore, the blade is tall, and there's a huge portion of it sticking up right here with this big open area for you to engage with. So even though it's short this way, it is so easy and just second nature. Even reverse flicking is so easy, right? I can left hand reverse flick this thing, no problem. I'm right hand dominant. Really, really easy. A lot of people talk about the shark lock itself. Like, people ask me, like, does it break in? I can't get it to go all the way. This is an error that people are doing when they're disengaging this. And I know this from passing this knife around and other Demko knives around to family members and watching all of them, including my dad and brother, who both have huge hands. My dad, from decades of construction work, very strong hands, right? My little brother has bigger and stronger hands than me. Both of them did this. I'm sorry. I'm too strong. Let me demonstrate using only a fraction of my power. They did this. They just stopped right here. People who are new to the shark lock, or just regular people in general, once they hit a certain amount of resistance, they assume that that's maxed out. Probably because there's not a lot of objects in our daily universe that require you to pull down on a spring-loaded tab on the spine of the object in order to get something else to happen. So whatever we've experienced that's similar to that has never given most people more resistance than about right here. So they're like, why it not go? Grr! That's okay. That's nothing wrong. That's just the normal human reaction. If you buy this, if you've never experienced a shark lock knife, you're going to need to pull harder. Pull it all the way down. It goes all the way back here. Once you do that, the first time you'll go, oh, and then you'll remember it, right? It's still a decent amount of tension, and admittedly, these are a little sharp here. I always kind of made fun of people who said, like, oh, when you grip it up here, it's not so much here. It's when you're manipulating it, and you slip off to the side, right? There's the little teeth right here, a little bit sharp. So knocking that down creates issues, makes it more difficult to hang onto it while you're trying to manipulate it, right? But my main point here is pull down more. Don't stop right here. You'll get used to it. This finger will strengthen up very quickly. If you're like, work at it a little bit. You'll get there. It's not that bad, but I'm just letting you know. As far as the action goes, though, disengaging the locks, like I said, it's a little bit sharp, but it's very easy to do. It will start to irritate your finger after a while if you sit and fidget with this thing over and over and over again. And it's not a lot different, honestly, than the Shark Cub. I just really wish the edges were knocked down a little bit more. And, the one that I think is the least aggressive is the one on the 20.5. So if they changed, this is a lot more like this, right? This is actually the most aggressive. So there you go. Very easy to manipulate, much easier than people think, and much easier than you would expect for such a tiny knife. It does run on bearings, very satisfying to deploy for a little guy, but still not as good as its bigger brothers. Carry profile thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. It is fat and chunky for a knife of this size, but it's actually exactly the same, if not slightly thicker than the Para 3. So not crazy. Length and height up against the Para 3 and the PM2. it is tall. It's kind of a weird object. It's tall, but it still carries like a small pocket knife. It feels fat, but then you put it in your pocket and you're like, oh, and it's just not really that big of a deal to carry. It might bother some people. It didn't bother me very much. It is pretty tall though, right? So there you go. Let's go ahead and I'm going to get out my tools and do a hardware check. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. This is a T10, and that's the size of the pivot. And then for some reason, Demko likes T6 screws. These should be T8. Demko, T8, you're making big burly knives, come on. But they're T6, not that big of a deal. As long as you have the right tools for the job, should be good to go. If you've never taken apart a knife with a shark lock, there's a spring back here, and as soon as you pull this off, there's a chance it's gonna go pew across the room and you're gonna lose it. So, get a piece of Tupperware, get a big freezer bag, and disassemble the knife within some sort of protective barrier so that when that spring tries to escape, you can stop it. Because let me tell you, man, I lost a spring out of one of these one time and I had to look for it for an hour and a half. Luckily found it, but you don't want to lose that spring. Far from impossible. Actually pretty friendly as long as you can keep track of that spring. As long as you have the right tools for the job, you'd be good to go, like I said. Let's go ahead and weigh it. What do we have for materials? We have G10. We got steel back here for the lock and the liners. We've got a steel clip, and we have a CPM 20CV blade. How are they heat treated? This knife is made in Taiwan, which is not China. We still have people thinking that a knife that's made in Taiwan should have the same manufacturing costs as knives that are made in China. It doesn't matter what you think. It's not true. It costs a lot more money to make something in Taiwan than it does for China, right? Now, every time I bring this up, people want to get into the politics of that. I would ask you, please don't do that. As far as the point I'm trying to make is, it isn't as cheap as China. And if you didn't know that, you are welcome to look into it. But now you do, right? It's not quite as expensive as making something in the USA. And I am going to get to the price tag on this, which I don't love. Just understand it's not China. But anyways, we have a CPM 20 CV blade, which is, the steel itself is actually made in the United States. How are they heat treating this? Between 60 and 61. Demko told me very specifically 60.5. So it sounds like that's their target, which is perfectly fine. I have no issue with that. As long as it's not below 60, you're good to go. The weight on this. Ooh, boy, it's fatter than you would expect for such a small knife. 3.6 ounces, but then again, 3.6 ounces is really not that many ounces. The balance on the knife is right behind the pivot, so the whole object just feels kind of fat and chunky, but not heavy. So that's nice, right? Blade stock thickness. Let's go ahead and do that here real quick. This is a stout little blade for sure, for how small the knife is in general. 132 thousandths. Not thick, but thicker than you'd expect for a knife of this size. Meat and potatoes time. This is a durable little knife. The blade geometry and thickness, even though it's 20 CV, this is stumpy and thick. I don't know that 20 CV was the best choice. I would have loved to see something like S45VN, right? Just so we still have a stainless steel, but it's a little tougher, right? But yeah, this is, man, you can really like get in and do some hard draw cuts on thick cardboard. It feels really good. It's very obvious that this is a chunky little tiny tank, like super durable little tank of a knife. With the combination of the triad lock, yeah, it's going to be strong. Now, I'm not saying you can go out and pry with this or hammer with your knife or screw with it because it's a knife. It's not those other tools. If you're doing that with your knife, chances are the blade isn't sharp. So now you have an object that's not good at any of those things. First and foremost, cutting tasks, which is what a knife is used for. I try to emphasize this because we still have lots of people out there trying to use their knife as a multi-tool. Use a multi-tool for a multi-tool or for multi-tool tasks. If you have a specific task that requires a specific tool, use that tool. Your knife is for cutting. But if you're really going to put a lot of pressure into your cuts, you're going to be processing a lot of material, something like that, and you're wondering is this going to stand up to it? Is the lock strong enough for stuff like that? Yes. Is this an optimized shape for continued cutting? No. think it's more so just fun than anything else. But man, if this is all you had in a pinch and you had to do some serious knife stuff, yeah, as long as it doesn't require much more blade, yeah. Because the triad or the shark lock's gonna hold up to it, and the geometry of the blade is not going to be a weak geometry. It'll be the composition of the blade steel that would create any sort of weakness, right? But strong tip, thick behind the edge, right? Because you have 132 thousandths, then not a lot of taper, but it will still slice and cut, and it'll hold an edge decently well. Considering, well, it'll hold an edge plenty well, considering it's 20 CV and 60.5 or 60.5 Rockwell, right? Fit and finish is very, very good. I don't love knives that are a 3-finger grip. Truthfully, I can force a 4-finger grip on this, and I'll show you. I can get up here, 2, 3, 4. I can do that. Does it feel comfortable? No. To lock in, truthfully, it's one here behind this and one here. Then I have this finger, and this finger slips off the edge. That's where I feel ergonomically locked in. It's also not jamming this peak, which is a bigger problem on this knife ergonomically. If you're going to choke up on this thing, it jams the peak of that into your hand. Not terrible, but you can definitely feel it, right? That's what I don't love about this, but it's a short knife. Like, it's just not going to, if you have hands that are bigger than mine, I wear an XL glove. If you have hands that are bigger than mine, you're definitely not going to be as locked in. People who have smaller hands than me, you might really, really like this. What I do like about it is that it is a little thicker. It just feels a little bit more robust than other knives of this size. That and the fact that the whole profile is a little taller. It's kind of nice. It's kind of fun. This puts a smile on my face carrying this little guy. And it does cut. I think it's just maybe I'm naturally like pushing harder on it, or like it just feels like something that's ready to take abuse, right? Like a short, stocky little fullback, like it's just really, it's like a little wrestler, right? It's like the short, stocky guy in the 185 or the 189 pound weight class. He's like 5'7" and solid muscle at 189 pounds. Like that's what this looks like. It's just a very little muscular little knife, and I kind of like it, but not everybody's going to love it, So ergonomically, not incredible, but better than you would expect for a short little knife. Blade geometry, not incredibly slicey, but it'll definitely cut, definitely plenty durable. Slight lock stick. Every now and then I get lock stick with the shark lock, but it should wear itself in. There's a lanyard hole, and like I said, it does come with the other pocket clip because it's angled, so you need the one that's like meant for the other side. So lefties can carry this and have the exact same experience because it's ambidextrous locking system, right? G10, nothing special. It's simple peel ply texture G10. Really wish that this was contoured. That'd be nice. Would also have loved something like aluminum at this price point, but okay. The stop pin is located here, and it is bigger than a normal stop pin. Well, I think maybe it just looks bigger because it's such a small knife. I think it's actually probably a pretty standard size stop pin. Absolutely zero blade play up, down, left, or right. There is no pivot lash. It's very smooth and consistent in here. And with the event horizon of the shark lock acting as the detent here, it's honestly held in place pretty tight. This still has perfect centering, and I have not had to adjust it. What's the price? $230. Yikes. Why? For $230, there should have been, it should have at least been, aluminum with various, like texture patterns and different color options. I agree with a lot of people who criticize the price tag on this guy. I would have loved to see this at under 200. I think ideally at about 180. Now, there's always going to be some paint guzzler who says that knife should only cost you $40, and you, as we all know, those people don't have any idea what they're looking at. They have no idea. They'll compare this to like a firearm or some other thing it's not the same object. It doesn't have the same costs associated with it, or they have a poor understanding of the costs that go into the manufacturing of the item that they're comparing to and how it's different with the stuff stuff like this and how it's being made, right? So if you're one of those people, it's probably best that you just have a seat and expect there to be things that you just don't know a lot about yet. There's a lot to learn about pocket knives and where they're made and how they're made and the costs associated with them, right? When you have some gigantic, massive factory, right, and you can make money on volume and you have automated processes that are making thousands and thousands of intricate, no matter how intricate, if the process is automated and you can make money on volume, right, then you have a totally different variable. You have totally different variables all the way around when it comes to the final price tag. So if your gut instinct is to compare it with something like a firearm or a camera or something like that, stop. There's much more involved with it. There's so much more involved with the final price tag than that, and that is not a good example. I'm sure it sounds like a smart example in your head, but it's not. So I know that sounds very dismissive, but it's meant to be. But anyways, for this, and we're comparing apples to apples, again, we have 20 CV, Taiwan manufacturing, high quality Taiwan manufacturing, by the way, with properly heat treated CPM 20 CV blade, which is not necessarily incredibly special in 2024, but still a very, very premium blade steel, still an expensive blade steel. It's being properly heat treated. G10, peel ply textured, nothing special there. We have a proprietary locking system, the Shark Lock, which does have to be perfectly manufactured to get it to interact with the blade, manipulate exactly the same way, right? And these are not being mass-produced the same way that a Spyderco knife or a Kershaw knife or a Gerber knife, right? It's not that type of mass production. They're making a lot of them, but not nearly as many, right? So we still have decently high manufacturing costs, and we have some elements that would cause the price tag to be higher than another knife. Like if you want to compare like a knife that's 20 CV and G10, not enough of a comparison there. There's obviously some more unique stuff going on here. Is it deserving of a $230 price tag? No, I don't think so. I think if you want to charge that much for it, you've got to have some more special stuff, right? You got to have something else going on. Contoured, textured aluminum in different, colors. That I think that would feel a lot better. I mean, Demko has released knives, many knives in configurations that are similar for the same or less money. So we can actually look to their own we can look to their own inventory for examples, right? So this I think should be less. I mean, we have variations of the AD 20.5 that are also G10 and 20 CV for substantially less. So why, right? Yeah, I think 180 would have been much more fair. But, if you're going to stream $40-50, you're wrong. Sorry. It's not even, you're just objectively wrong about that. That's mean. It's going to get me in trouble. People are going to want to fight me in the comment section. It's fine. But realistically, this should have been less money. It's really fun. It's really cool. You want my recommendation? The most perfect Demko knife that they have ever released is the Shark Cub. If you need something a little bit bigger, you could go with this guy, but realistically, it's not that much more ergonomic room since they chop you off right here with this hooked butt end. The cutting edge isn't that much different anyway, which is why I always say the Shark Cub is the better knife. If you truly need a larger knife, go with the full-size 80-20. Either the 80-20i, the international version, where the blades are made in Italy, or the actual USA-made Demko 80-20 that is full-on full-size, right? But I think this is still definitely a better knife and feels a lot better for the money, right? But this is still really cool. I'm glad that they did it, and some people are going to pick it up anyway. But either way, I will link this down in the description so that you guys can check it out if you want to. I'm going to keep this knife. I think it's really, really cool. I don't think it's competitively priced, and it's not generally recommendable at this price point or even up against Demko's other products. I hope that makes sense. That's going to be it. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.